Tuesday, February 25th, and here is the news. I wanted to start it off first today, actually, Jaden, with a big story.
hmm
So apparently, Trump is cutting staff for people that oversee implementation of the CHIPS Act and oversee AI and intelligence and stuff like that. Um, I've talked about it before a number of different times on the live. If we cannot figure out how to produce chips in the United States, we are in serious trouble. And that's what the CHIP Act sought to oversee. We have chips being made in Taiwan. About 60% of the world's semiconductors come from there, and 94% of the advanced chips. China is about 3 years behind in terms of commercial viability, like how far they are off from catching up to Taiwan in terms of commercially available chips. Fab factories in the United States, not an easy situation. The CHIPS Act addressed that. It's very expensive to start these up. I think the Arizona plant costs 10 billion, something like that. It's not. They're not cheap fab factories. They're very, very expensive to create chips. And basically, the CHIPS Act addressed foundries, rare earth sourcing, and it addressed actually developing these plants. And this was a landmark, incredibly important. I think one of the most important pieces of legislation. I couldn't even tell you in how long in terms of like viability going forward for the United States and United States dominance in technology. Now Trump is undermining that with the CHIPS Act, and if that happens and we can't develop chips in the United States, Taiwan ultimately becomes a very easy target for China. In fact, China, if they were to scuttle the factory, would be in a better position than the United States, the factory TSMC out of Taiwan. So this sets us up for like long-term disaster. Technology is the reason the United States is as big and strong as it is right now. And if that ends, we are in trouble. And Trump is undermining that. This has gone critical. So we'll see how it all plays out if they identify it as being a problem because they keep recalling employees. I don't have any faith in that. So we'll keep an eye out for it. But I expect that like in the future we are going to see a war in Taiwan, almost certainly to some degree. So, anyway, Jaden, next story.
Well, a Southwest Airlines plane was forced to abort its landing this morning after a private jet taxied right in front of it across the runway at Midway Airport in Chicago. This appears to be an issue with communication, thus exacerbating what seems to be a recurring issue over the last few weeks of a lack of staff within these control towers. This follows yet another trend of near misses or accidents happening on these tarmacs and runways since we've transitioned towards a less stringent set of protocols when it comes to airlines. In addition to that, a federal judge in Seattle blocked Trump's effort to halt the refugee admission system. This was a federal judge today. Trump's suspension of the national refugee admission system, saying that while the president had broad authority over who comes into the country, he cannot nullify a law passed by Congress establishing this system. The ruling came in lawsuit brought by individual refugees whose efforts to resettle in the United States have been halted, as well as major refugee aid groups who argued that they had to lay off staff because the administration froze funding for processing refugee applications overseas, as well as support such as short-term rental assistance for those already in the United States. It's convenient that the roadblocks when it comes to these initiatives are happening from legal migration, are happening from those who are here legally. So it's really as though this administration has taken an indiscriminate approach on how they combat migration. That regardless of your legal status, you're going to be subject to major scrutiny and rollbacks of the law. Let's see what else we've got here. Federal judge rules that Trump administration has to pay millions in foreign aid to nonprofits. A federal judge is ordering the Trump administration to dole out millions of dollars to multiple nonprofit groups, determining that the Trump administration violated the terms of a temporary restraining order issued 2 weeks ago regarding freezing foreign aid. Judge Amir Ali, a Biden-era appointee, excoriated Trump administration attorneys during a lengthy hearing on Tuesday over its failure to pay the groups for work they conducted prior to President Trump's January 20th executive order, which froze all foreign aid for 90 days. Ali also signed an order to enforce a temporary restraining order he signed in February 13th, ruling the groups must be paid by 11:59 tomorrow, Wednesday. In addition to that, here's some major news coming from the world of foreign affairs. The United States and Ukraine nears an economic deal with mineral rights, but no security promise, officials say. Ukraine and the United States have reached an agreement on a framework for a broad economic deal that would include access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals, three senior Ukrainian officials said Tuesday. The officials who were familiar with the matter spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. One of them said that Kyiv hopes that signing the agreement will ensure that the United States' flow of military support will address Ukraine's urgent needs. The
Yeah,
agreement could be
so
signed as early as Friday.
I just want to point this out. So it does not appear that the war is going to end. He's going to continue to fund them, just
Nope.
like Biden was. So he's not ending the war. Let's keep that in mind. He is not ending the war as well as he can. And basically, he's just like put these all of Ukraine under this crazy. Like I don't understand it. Like he just came in and strong armed Ukraine, where he could have been like, or like any president could have been like, well, mineral rights will be fine, and then sure they would have agreed to it. Like you can just we'll be the exclusive buyer. Just sell it to us, right? Or whoever we deem. Like we'll you know. But he came in and
Hmm.
strong armed them over something he really didn't need to. Uh, Even if this deal happens, I'm very confused as how it's going to work because it's not possible that in any time soon there's going to be like mining operations set up inside of this area, right? It's an active war
Hmm.
zone. And almost certainly the next president that comes in is just going to get rid of this deal. Like, just get rid of it. It's not going to be put in law. I doubt very much it would be put in law. It could be, but yeah, they'll just go back on it or something to that degree. So from Ukraine's perspective, they're just like, we just agreed to something that's probably going to get written off anyways. You can't pull it out of the ground. It's going to take a long time to do it regardless, and it's certainly not going to happen right now. So yeah, why would we make that agreement? I guess Russia is floating a very similar idea to the United States. They can't be trusted. Um, and I would hope that most of the Republicans in Trump's administration understand this. So they're trying to, I guess, make a deal as well. I'm not sure what the leverage here is because it looks like Trump just signed away mineral rights or just got mineral rights to continue to fund Ukraine. And how is he going to end the war? And this has kind of like been part and parcel of the Trump administration. You know, it's been part and
Hmm.
parcel of the Trump administration that they're just come
They
in and
lack
do,
foresight.
but yeah, they
It's
just
very
do random
reactionary.
stuff,
Yeah.
and then they just forget about it. And that,
Hmm.
like, does anybody remember we were supposed to take over Greenland?
No.
It seems like a lifetime
What's a
ago.
Greenland?
Yeah, Carbon, you can chirp in at any point if you want. By the way,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to say, but
Not on this particular one, but yeah, I
no.
got you. I
Okay.
got you.
Yeah, but at any
Uh,
rate,
yeah.
it's not it's what's going to happen here is either one of two things. We're going to continue doing what Biden is doing, or we're going to make the situation in the long term disastrous. And I guess we'll just see how it plays out. So
In the world of President Elon Musk, today the Trump administration has quietly deleted much of their wall of receipts, claiming to show how much Doge was saving after it was revealed that those numbers were false. This included a top 5 list of the most egregious spending offenses posted at the header of their website, now has been purged over what appears to be a major correction of their information. Additionally, in the world of President Musk, the FAA is awarding a new contract to Elon Musk's SpaceX to help manage U.S. airspace. This is on top of the tens of billions of dollars in federal government contracts that Musk companies have already secured. Now, if this doesn't present itself as a very clear and gross and egregious conflict of interest, I'm truly not sure what does. Any
yeah,
comment?
no, on this one,
Yeah,
it's just
I remember covering on stream the Doge Tracker website, and it had like sort of an itinerary or itemized list, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
of the savings, and one of the top ones was 30 billion. So I clicked on the link that was their source, and it just was this one singular tweet with no link from a very right wing website. I was like, what is this website? So I go to the website, and it's just like the top links are like the plandemic. Here's news on the plandemic. I'm like, what is this? And I go to the story. I had to search the story in the internal search bar of this like website I've never heard of, and it's not even there. The 30 billion. I don't even know where they get the 30 billion from. They're just making these numbers up out of nowhere. I don't know where it's coming from.
Hear me out. What if when the next plane crashes, we just say that Elon took over the FAA?
I think that's
There you go.
valid.
Because
Perfectly fair.
they would do the same thing. George Soros took over the FAA. That's why all these planes are crashing. You know what I mean? I think that should be the line. That should be the line we take. Yeah.
Yes. Additionally, U.S. consumer confidence plummeted in February, the biggest monthly decline in more than 4 years, a business research group said Tuesday, with inflation seemingly stuck and a trade war under President Trump seen by a growing number of Americans as inevitable. The conference board reported that its consumer confidence index sank this month to 98.3 from 105.3 in January. That's far below the expectations of economists who projected a reading of 103 according to a survey by FactSet. A 7-point dip was the biggest month-to-month decline since August of 2021. Markets on Wall Street immediately dropped. The S&P 500 fell 0.6% in midday trading, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average was flat. The Nasdaq declined 1.1%.
Now, are they just? Is the goal here to? Are they gonna do the tariffs? Because they haven't said anything about the tariffs.
Well, there's a word on that here, right here.
So we're getting, by the way, 10%. He put the tariff on China. That one's on. So now our stuff is going up. So your goods are now costing 10% more.
Yep.
And then also, are they doing that? Because he said it was going into effect the next month, but now I'm not sure that they think they can do that. And I know for a fact that the White House, there's fighting going on about whether or not they're going to implement widespread blanket tariffs. But he hasn't got anything for it. So is he going to say, oh, we got a border czar for 25% tariffs? This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You're threatening an economic trade war against our longest ally, and you got a border czar that they were already planning on doing.
Well, Trump today announced that his tariffs on Canada and Mexico are set to be resumed next month, ending a month-long suspension on the planned import taxes.
Did he say
So,
when?
getting ready for things to be expensive. There's no exact date, but he's saying that it will resume in March.
Yikes. Big yikes. Well, that's going to be
Yep.
fun.
And,
Carbon,
last
appreciate
major
you.
story.
Appreciate you joining.
Oh,
I'll raise
thanks
you
for
in a minute
hopping in.
here.
Last major story, the House Republicans voted unanimously, Democrats voting in the dissent, towards a budget resolution that demands $880 billion in cuts from energy and commerce, which controls Medicaid funding, sets a $2 trillion mandatory spending reduction, threatens healthcare access for vulnerable Americans, plus ER access for all, enforce existing laws instead. This is a 10-year spending plan which calls for an appropriate level of debt, as worded in the bill, of $55 trillion by 2034. Congressman Thomas Massey on the budget resolution said, quote, "They convinced me in there. I'm a no if the Republican plan passes. We're going to add $328 billion to the deficit this year and another $295 billion to the deficit next year after that."
Yeah, so Massey was against it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And that's what I've got in the news.
Awesome. Well, Jaden, appreciate it. I think that's the only thing we didn't talk about was Trump's hand, which I guess
Oh,
people
yes.
he has a bruise on his hand. You don't need to look it up. It's gross. I'll just describe it to you. But he has a bruise right here on his hand. And apparently, the White House claims it's from shaking so many hands. So I think that people are purposefully shaking his hand to hurt him.
Do it again.
And I think they're shaking it crazy hard. Yeah, I mean, like he has a bruise. Like I shake so many hands. How hard is someone shaking your hand that you get a bruise? But I think that people are asserting dominance. We've seen it with Kamala Harris during the debate. We saw it with Gavin Newsom.
Macron.
We saw it with Macron. Like people are manhandling this dude because he's fragile. I mean, he's 78. He doesn't have the
Speaking
grip
of,
strength anymore. So
Speaking of fragile, do you see who's in the box?
let me end the
Oh, he
recording and then I'll check. All right. Well, I guess that's the news. Shake Trump's hand hard because it bothers him apparently. So
Yes.